I've always been a dreamer. Since I was a little girl, I used to draw houses in old notebooks and tell my mother that one day I would be an architect. And I did it. I graduated with a lot of effort, working during the day and studying at night. My diploma was the symbol of an achievement that I never imagined giving up. But since life likes to play tricks, I would give up and not even realize that I was giving up on myself. My name is Anne, and I was 26 years old when I met Taylor. He was everything I thought I needed. Tall, friendly, with that protective manner that at first made me feel safe. He was a truck driver and proudly said that he knew the United States from end to end. He had stories from the road, an easy smile, and attention that I had never received from anyone before. It was as if he was born to take care of me. And that was exactly what caught my attention. We met at a diner near the office where I was doing my internship. I was with a friend, and he started talking to me in a funny, relaxed way. He complimented me, but he wasn't vulgar. He talked about my laugh, the way I played with my hair. Little things that made me blush. I, who had always been self-centered and suspicious, felt like I was melting in front of him. We started going out. At first, everything was perfect. He took me out to dinner, listened to me attentively, and said he admired my effort in working and studying. I felt special, valued, and loved. No one had ever looked at me that way. He said I was different from the others, and that I deserved to be treated like a princess. And for a while, I really did feel that way. The proposal came quickly. And less than a year later, he asked me to marry him. My parents thought it was all very hasty, but how could they argue with a man who treated me so well? They gave in to my enthusiasm and I dove headfirst into that fairy tale I believed I was living. We got married in a simple but beautiful ceremony. He made sure to take care of everything. And that was when the first small, almost imperceptible signs began. He wanted to choose the dress I would wear. He said it was because he wanted me to look beautiful, that he wanted something discreet, his way. At the time, I thought it was romantic. After the wedding came the big change. I thought that as newlyweds we would build a life together, that he would support me in my career. I dreamed of opening my own architecture firm. But he had other plans. He said he didn't want a stressed-out wife, that architects lived under pressure, that it was better for me to stay home. You don't need that. I'll give you everything. I just want you to be calm, taking care of the house, of our future children, he would say. At first I was reluctant. But his tone began to change. From sweet and persuasive, he became firm and non-negotiable. He didn't yell, he didn't bang on the table. But his gaze, that dry, cutting gaze left me cold. And I gave in. Partly out of fear, partly because I believed it was out of love. After all, he said he would do everything for me. I left the job market. I became a housewife. Something that wasn't humiliating to me, but it was painful to give up a dream that had been built with so much sweat. I told myself that it was only for a while. That when we had children, when things stabilized, I would come back. But that time never came. Over time, he began to change even more. Now I had to tell him everything, where I was going, who I was talking to, what I was wearing. Going to the gym? Never. I won't accept that in an environment full of men looking at you, he would say. Going to the salon? Only if he approved it first. My friends began to disappear from my life. He always found a reason to criticize each one. And I, ashamed, started to distance myself. I was only allowed to visit my parents. But even that had rules, a set time to leave and return, and no long phone calls. When I was at their house, he would call several times asking where I was, who I was with, what I was doing. My mother said it wasn't normal, but I didn't want to hear it. I thought it was just concern. That it was love. In the eyes of others, we were a happy couple. He took me out to dinner every now and then, posted pictures of us smiling on social media, made sure to show his friends how much he loved me. But only I knew what it was like inside the house. Only I knew the heavy silence during arguments, the disapproving looks, the subtle way he made me feel guilty for everything. And over time, I began to believe that I was in fact the problem. I stopped dreaming. I got used to the routine at home, to the days when he was on the road and I could breathe a little. But when he came back, it was like I had to relearn how to walk on eggshells. Every word was weighed, every movement watched. I couldn't laugh too loudly, I couldn't stay on my phone for too long, I couldn't wear tight clothes, not even indoors. I felt like I was being tested all the time. And no matter how hard I tried, I always failed. The years went by and I saw myself fading more and more. Sometimes I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. That dreamy, determined woman, full of plans, was gone. In her place was a shadow, a silent figure who lived to please a man who said he loved her, but kept her in an invisible prison. Even so, I still thought I had a perfect life. He didn't cheat on me, or at least I believed that. He was a good provider, he never hit me, he never cursed me. I clung to that like someone clinging to a branch on the high seas. I thought there were worse marriages, that at least I had a home, food on the table, a ring on my finger. Little did I know that reality was much crueler than I imagined. Everything was about to fall apart. And I still had no idea that behind that controlling man, there was a secret so perverse that it would completely change my life. A secret that not only explained his behavior, but that would reveal a devastating truth. He had another family in another state with another woman and children. With an entire parallel life built while I washed the floor of our house believing I was the only one. But back then, in those early years, I still thought that what we lived was love. That all the control was care. That all the jealousy was protection. And that's what hurts me the most to this day, remembering myself smiling, fooling myself, believing that I was living a dream, when in fact I was inside a carefully made-up nightmare. If I had paid attention to the details, maybe everything would have been different. But the problem is that when we love or think we love, we make excuses even for what hurts. And that's exactly what I did for years. After a few years of marriage, I began to notice certain behaviors of Taylor that made me uncomfortable. Little things that at first seemed silly but later turned out to be glaring signs that something was very wrong. He had always been reserved with his cell phone, but this became more intense over time. At first, he said that he needed privacy because of work, that clients sometimes sent messages with prices and directions. But he was a truck driver, who would these clients be? Even so, I didn't question him. He left his cell phone on silent, facing down, and slept with it under his pillow as if he were hiding something precious. Once, I had to use his cell phone to call my mother, since mine had run out of battery. He got nervous, said that his battery was low too and that I should wait a little while for mine to call. I thought it was strange. Why would he react like that if it was just a call? But again I kept quiet. He always found a way to make me feel wrong for being suspicious. Another sign that started to bother me was his excessive travel. He always had long routes, it's true. But for some time now, he would spend weeks away. He would say that they were bigger contracts, new routes. But there were inconsistencies in his stories. Sometimes he would say he was in Minnesota. Other times, he would mention a completely different place during the same period. I would ask and he would get irritated. Do you think I'm a liar, is that it? Are you watching me now? He would say with that dry, cutting tone that made me feel cold inside. And I would back away. Taylor started bringing me gifts when he came back from his trips. Nothing too expensive, but things that seemed to have been bought with guilt. A perfume, a blouse, sometimes even household items, as if trying to please me was a way of covering up something. And for a while, I let it work. I convinced myself that he loved me, that the problem was my suspicious mind. But my doubts grew. I started paying more attention to his schedule, to the messages he received and avoided reading around me, to the clothes that would come back smelling of a different perfume. It was a soft, feminine perfume, too sweet to be something from the road. Once I confronted him about it. He laughed and said that it probably came from the waitress at the restaurant where he had lunch. And once again, I let it go. I started to feel that he was more emotionally distant. He was no longer affectionate like he used to be. Before. The kiss upon arrival became a simple hello. Conversations were limited to the basics. And our intimate moments practically disappeared. When I brought up the subject, he said he was tired and stressed from the road. But he was only 39 years old. I knew there was something behind it. I could feel in my body that he no longer desired me. And this silent and corrosive feeling was destroying me from the inside. On one of the trips, he came back with a bite mark on his neck. I've never been one for jealousy, but that got on my nerves. I asked what it was. He looked at himself in the mirror, pretended to be surprised, and said it must have been from an insect. An insect that left red marks with the exact shape of teeth. I laughed nervously. But he didn't think it was funny. He said I was being paranoid, that I was making things up to start a fight. And again, I ended up apologizing for something he did. One night while he was sleeping, his cell phone vibrated. It was a short message from an unnamed number. "Did you get home okay? The kids asked about you." My heart froze. I stood paralyzed, staring at the screen for seconds that seemed like hours. Before I could open anything else, he woke up and violently snatched the phone from my hands. For the first time, he yelled at me. He yelled like a stranger. He told me never to touch his phone again, called me crazy, invasive. He said he was disappointed in me. And with tears in my eyes, I apologized again. After that episode, I spent days without sleeping properly. That message wouldn't leave my head. "The kids asked about you." What kids? We didn't have children. I could never get pregnant, something he used to make me feel less of a woman sometimes, even without saying it directly. I started to put the pieces together, but there was still no proof. There was still a part of me inside that refused to accept that everything we had experienced could be a lie. That's when I decided to seek help from my best childhood friend, Sarah. We had grown apart because of him, but she never stopped sending messages even when I didn't respond. I sent her a crying message asking to meet up. We met at a discreet cafe hidden away from everything. And I broke down and told her everything. Every detail. And she was the first to tell me in so many words, "Girl, he's been cheating on you. And it's not just now." It was like a knife pierced my chest. But at the same time, it was what I needed to hear to get out of denial. Anna helped me create a plan to find out the truth. We started monitoring his social media more closely. He was careful, he didn't post anything compromising. But on the profile of a woman from another city, whose last name I had never seen, we found an old photo with him in the background. Very disguised, but it was him. And next to her, 2 children with features similar to his. That made me tremble. It was just the beginning. I still wasn't sure what was coming, but my heart already knew. And it hurt. It hurt as if every beat reminded me that the perfect life I thought I had built was a sham. I was married to a stranger. A man with a double life. And little did I know that in the next few days I would discover not only the existence of the other family, but also the depths he had gone to keep everything a secret. What began as a shy doubt soon turned into a storm inside me. I no longer slept. I didn't eat properly. I felt my stomach churn every time he left for a new trip. The image of those 2 children in the photo wouldn't leave my mind. I spent hours staring at their faces, trying to deny the obvious. They looked too much like Marcos. Those dark eyes, the shape of their chins, even the way one of them smiled. It was like seeing a miniature version of him. But I still didn't want to believe it. There was still no definitive proof, the one that would leave no room for excuses, manipulation, or doubts. It was Sarah who gave me the courage to dig deeper. "He'll never tell you the truth. If you want to know everything, you'll have to find out for yourself," she told me. And that's what I did. For the first time in years, I decided to take action for myself. I was tired of living in the shadow of being manipulated, of apologizing for feeling. That had to end. We came up with a plan. Sarah suggested that I fake a long visit to my parents' house, under the pretense that my mother was sick. Taylor didn't really like the idea, but since I would only be 20 minutes away from home, he ended up allowing it, even though he was reluctant. In fact, he even seemed a little relieved, as if my absence would make things easier for him. While he was preparing for a new trip, I was also preparing myself. When he left early on Friday morning, saying he was going to Oklahoma, I followed Anna right after. After much research, we had discovered the name of the woman in the photo, Simone. She lived in a small town in the interior of the state, where Marcos said he rarely went. And to our surprise, Simone used the last name Fernandez, the same last name as Taylor. That gave me chills. It was late afternoon when we arrived in the city. A peaceful place, with quiet streets and a central square where everything happened. It seemed that time there moved more slowly. We parked near a kindergarten. It was Anna who had the idea of starting there. She said that if there really were children, they would probably be at that school, since it was the only one in the area. And as if in a nightmare coming true before your eyes, I saw him. There, standing on the sidewalk, was Taylor, holding hands with a child who looked about 7 years old. On the other side, a younger girl, with a little pink backpack on her back. And next to him, Simone. They were laughing, like a normal family. Like a happy family. My world stopped. I was breathless. I was shaking from head to toe. I hid behind a car and watched that scene as if watching a horror movie. It was him. My husband. The man who slept next to me every week, who said he loved me, who controlled my every move. There being a father and husband to another woman. I saw him open the car door for the children, like a caring father. I saw Simone kiss him on the cheek, and he smiled. That broke me inside. There was no doubt. There were no more explanations that could cover up that scene. He had a second family. It wasn't just a betrayal. It was an entire life built on lies. I cried silently. I couldn't move. I felt the blood draining from my face, my legs weak. Anna held my hand tightly. Now you know. Now you're sure, she whispered. But I couldn't process anything. The only thing that went through my head was, why? Why did he do this to me?